Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Proof of Vision. Really, really exciting episode for you today with Thiago. He's the CEO of the Tanssi Network Foundation. And we really, really got into it. If you believe that the future is, where every enterprise has its own chain, or, there's a ton of app chains out there, this episode is definitely for you. I think that space is heating up with Arbitrum, with Optimism, with Polkadot, with Cosmos. Everybody's trying to, scale these blockchains and make it easier for people to create their own chains, create their own use cases with those chains, et cetera. And so the conversation with Thiago and with what Tanssi is building is really, really interesting in that regard. With some of the use cases they've been able to build with, billions of dollars of payments, coming and building, apps on Tanssi, into some very, very actually futuristic applications of blockchain and Tanssi as well. So, it was a great episode. I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it. They've got a TGE coming up here in a couple of weeks. So, obviously, they'll probably have a lot of eyes on them. Hopefully, you guys find this informative and you can kind of use it to make your own decisions on where your exposure might be. But yeah, we really appreciate it. And obviously, if you like it, please hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode of Proof of Vision. Take care. All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of Proof of Vision. I am your humble host, Kirk, the Director of Protocol Services with Alia Research. Today we have Thiago, who's the CEO of the Tanssi Foundation. How are you, sir?
Doing great. I'm your humble guest, and I'm happy to be here.
Lots
Big
of
fan of
humility.
Alia.
Yeah, lots of humility on the show. If the listeners can already see that. No,
Yeah.
welcome to the show. Really, really happy to have you guys. You guys are doing some exciting things. Really, really excited to dive into it. But first, I always like to start with your personal background. What were you doing before crypto? How did you get into crypto? What led you down to down the rabbit hole? That we all kind of fall into in crypto. Let's start there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a cool way to start actually. So I have my background. Well, at first I studied computer science, right? I'm based in Brazil and I started my career over here. I studied computer science and spent some time in Germany as well. My family's half German and studied in a German school. So eventually I kind of felt this need to go see, yeah, that that place that's kind of my 50% of my identity, so to say. I spent some time there. I studied economy over there. So I took a bunch of subjects in economy and some more applied stuff. So I enjoyed pretty much that time. And so I always had this, and I mentioned that because I always had this interest about both, technology and finance, right? And that's what actually hooked me to crypto. But I started a career as a software engineer, so doing coding, eventually, I became more and more closer to the business side of things. I was mostly like making this kind of middle ground between devs and business people in a company called Visagio, which is like a strategy consulting here in Brazil. It's like the tropical McKinsey, so to say. So I spent a good 5 years over there, but I got once again closer and closer to finance. Eventually, I saw myself working in a big hedge fund in Brazil, so one of the biggest independent hedge funds in Brazil. And I spent a good 9 years over there, so it was amazing. And in that time, I learned about crypto. Right, that was back in 2017, and yeah, exciting times of a completely different market to what we know today. But if essentially, as I was saying, like crypto is like this convergence between finance and technology. So it hooked me instantly. First, it was mostly like, just buying some Bitcoin here, some Solana, some Ethereum, like in the beginning, like just playing around with the major exchanges. But eventually in 2021, we saw a big movement in Brazil for companies starting to, like big banks, starting to talk seriously about blockchain and like how this could be tokenization, blockchains, and how this could be the future of finance. So in this time, the Brazilian Stock Exchange started a very interesting project that eventually became the spin-off of B3. Right, B3 is the name of the stock exchange, and they have a company now called B3 Digitus, which is like the digital assets arm of the Brazilian Stock Exchange. Itaú as well, the biggest bank in Latam, started to make some investments. They bought a big stake in a tokenization company back in the days. They decided to do some prop trading on crypto as well. So big players, all of these players, they were part of the hedge fund portfolio. We were very focused on equity trading, and eventually the CIO came to me and said, "Thiago, like we have to have an opinion about that." Right? And you are the only one interested on crypto, so go make some research and bring this to us. And that was really when I just felt in the rabbit hole. I couldn't go back. I was like, yeah, I'm here for 9 years. I did a lot of amazing stuff here, but I'm ready to just go full time to this new market. And back in this time, like that was 2021, 2022, we saw a lot of good good people, good brains, just quitting their jobs in Goldman and JP Morgan and many other big banks in the US and even in Europe as well, CS. So yeah, I was like, yeah, maybe that's the path, and that's what I did. So I quit and yeah, started to work in crypto.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, I know. That's one thing that attracted me too when I decided to make the leap from what I was doing before into crypto full time. I was like, hey, like if all these Silicon Valley, engineers and, top executives and, these banking executives are all jumping from the traditional finance world into crypto, I should probably do the same thing. I'm not as smart as those people, so I should probably just be there as well. So
Mhm.
that was a big psychological thing for me too. In what you said about your background too, which is really interesting to me actually, is that not many like, founders have I talked to that actually have kind of like engineering background plus hedge fund background, or asset management
Mhm.
background. And I think that's a very unique, blend, of perspectives, right? And the way that crypto works, it touches all of those things, and it's just really interesting. How's that helped you kind of like think about the design of the products you guys are building?
Yeah, that's very, very interesting question actually, because even giving a step further about Tanssi, right? Tanssi is a very technical product. So our immediate client usually is, the CTO of a company. So actually what we are doing is that we are saving a shitload of time to these CTOs to put together their chains up and running, saving time on integrations as well. So these are our primary clients, right? So talking more technical is very important. Otherwise, it's just going to think, oh, this is the BD guy that's just selling me, and usually technical people, they smell bullshit, right? So you have to be very like honest and very, I mean, you have to demonstrate that technical knowledge. And I know, although my career as a software engineer was relatively brief, I mean, I never stopped coding, even the hedge fund, right? So I remember back we started like a big data area just to collect like public data and trade based on like make more informed trading decisions, right? So I never actually stopped working with some degree with technology. So yeah, that helped me a lot, like to just understand quicker the challenges here that they were suffering and that we could be solving with our tech. But also more recently, right? So I'm one of the co-founders of Tanssi. I joined the company, the development company building the Tanssi Network that's called Moondance Labs. That was like the first company in the constellation, so to say. And I was the VP of growth over there, doing a lot of BD and yeah, working together with the CEO in strategic topics and everything. But more recently, we just went to this normal route, right, for many crypto projects, which is like having a foundation. So all the aspects that come to treasury management, all these type of things are usually kind of part of the foundation job. And that matches already my background once again, right? So right now I have in my team like the operations team, of course BD team as well, but operations, legal. So these things were kind of more my world in the back in the fund times, right? So in the asset management times. So this also helped a lot because I understand like uh, setup legal setups for offshore entities, like all this kind of boring part. Yeah, I used to do that a lot. We had a lot of international clients in the fund back, so I knew a lot of that stuff, so that helped, right? And yeah, so these are some of the advantages of having this background.
Alchemix Finance empowers you to spend and save at the same time with a self-repaying, interest-free, non-liquidatable loan. Deposit your assets and access your future yield today. Available on Mainnet, Arbitrum, and Optimism. Head to alchemix.fi to get started. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. It's always the boring stuff that's like the most important too. So like it's funny how that works. But I
Yeah,
think you alluded to it a little bit earlier when you were talking about like your primary clients are these CTOs. Break down Tanssi Network for us. Like what is the value prop if you were to pitch it to somebody that has no idea what blockchain is? What's the value prop? And let's talk about
sure, sure. Yeah, usually when I have a very kind of generalistic or very kind of non-crypto crowd, the way I explain this is like, we had Bitcoin beginning blockchains, and then eventually, smart contracts, were introduced, and Ethereum became this giant, global computer for, that's highly optimized for security and everything. And that all of that's super cool. We are living now in this third generation, I would say, where projects want to have their own chains, right? And chains, I mean, there are many flavors and colors, right? So you can talk about having your own rollup. You can talk about having your own layer one. You have recently the AVSs and the networks introduced by Eigenlayer and Symbiotic. So all this, I see all of them as kind of, and of course, like I just skipped that, but of course, like Polkadot and Cosmos as well, Avalanche Subnet. So these are all, flavors and colors. But what they share in common is that they have like, they offer a dedicated environment to certain thing, right? Instead of having a shared environment like Ethereum, uh, projects are more and more interested in having their own ecosystems, right? Their own dedicated structures. And the reason for that is, I mean, it can vary a lot. Usually we are talking about more scalable solutions because, if you have your own layer one, for instance, which is the case that we cover in Tanssi, right? So we are an app chain infrastructure protocol that leverages restaking for shared security. So what we do is that we save time, as I was saying, right? So for projects that want to deploy their own chains, so we make it faster, cheaper, and easier to deploy your own chain, leveraging our dApp, right? And how we do that is that we offer a very simple, codeless, framework where you just give a few clicks on the screen, and we templatized a bunch of stuff, right? So all these integrations, we have one EVM compatible template, we have one substrate template, we are about to release actually a move compatible template, and what these templates have is a bunch of integrations to tooling, right? Block explorers, indexers, wallets, RPC endpoints, widgets, like everything that any chain needs, right? And once you instance this template, combining all these integrations with your parameters, right? Let's say your own token. Do you want to have your own token or not? Do you want to have an EVM chain or not? Or what's the decimals amount of decimals of your token? Like very granular adjustments. But also we combine these things with all the integrations that we already have. And when you instance one template, creating your own chain, this chain, it inherits all the shared validator set, the shared sequencer set that we have in our kind of framework. And you also inherit the shared security that's powered by Symbiotic via restaking, right? So Tanssi has a restaking vault. We are figuring between one of the biggest networks in Symbiotic already. So we have last time I checked, it was $400 million in TVL in our vaults, and we were one of the three biggest networks in Symbiotic, and that means that this liquidity is going to be used for ensuring the security, the economic security for Tanssi chain and for all the chains that are orchestrated by Tanssi, right? And back to the motivations, right? Why people want to have their own chains, it varies a lot, right? So when you have your own L1, it's a very flexible, framework. You can have you can have your own token as a base token of the chain. Imagine that like if you deploy your smart contract based application in XYZ chain, you were forcing your final users to pay the gas fee, on the token that's where your chain lives, right? And then if you have your own chain, you can easily configure, for your final users to be paying the gas fees in your own token. So this opens a new revenue stream for the projects, right? And you can also have the complete opposite of that. As I said, it's a very flexible framework, right? So you can have a gasless chain, for instance. So we are growing a lot on the institutional vertical. And imagine like if you're talking about, I don't know, a retailer, right? A big retailer, and they're implementing whatever product that's based on blockchain rails for whatever reason. If they want their final users to engage with this product, not all the users they have an account on Binance or whatever exchange, right? So would you say like, no, if you want to use this product, you have to go to XYZ exchange, buy my token, move to a wallet? Like you already lost the client, right? He's not going to use that. So one of the cool use cases that we are seeing as well is institutions deploying their own chains, which happen to be gasless chains. And by doing that, they need to settle for our services with Tanssi tokens, right? Which will be launched very soon. But their technical team has the capability of managing the custody, of managing these tokens. But if they deploy a gasless chain, they don't impose this friction to their final users. And we believe this allows for many cool use cases to emerge, right? So yeah, it's as flexible as that. Is very scalable because we have dedicated block production for each chain. So you were competing for block space with yourself only, right? So it will never happen that a game eventually explode and it's launched, and you as a RWA application, you suffer for a spike on a gas fee because the gaming was launched and it was successful, right? Because you're sharing this ecosystem with this game. In this case, you're not sharing anything. Like you're just offering a full dedicated ecosystem to a full dedicated chain to your ecosystem. And it mitigates a lot the fluctuation of the gas as well. So these are some of the reasons why people are considering to launch their own chains. And it's cool, right? It's cool to have your your own ecosystem. I think I say about that. I tell that as a joke, more or less. But we are engaging also with some older institutions. You're talking about like sports or in esports clubs. So there's a lot of prestige involved sometimes in that. So they want to have their own chains. They want to have their own wallets. They want to have like a more vertical solution. So that's also maybe one reason that's less technical, but sometimes makes sense for a project to have their own chain. So it varies a lot. There are many, many reasons why people want to have their own chains, but we are here to support and to make it easier, right? It's easier and cheaper to launch the chains.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And this has been my thesis as well for a while, is that, as the space matures, like you're going to have some institutions obviously that are fine, maybe using like Ethereum L1, or one of these other, chains that exist, but probably the majority of them are going to insist that they have their own environment. And then it becomes a question of, do they actually have the technical know-how and the expertise and time and the resources to actually spend on launching their own L1, or launching their own app chain or L2 or whatever it may be, right? And so I think that that's clear value proposition for what you guys are building. Is I could totally see, outside of the financial world, all these other enterprises that want to dabble in blockchain using something like Tanssi to kind of get a head start, right? And really start diving into that world sooner than what they would have originally, right? My only question is, so And I think we've seen this a little bit with some of these app chains. Take DYDX for example, right? One of the you know it, one of the benefits was okay. They didn't want to compete for block space. They wanted to have a higher throughput, et cetera. Economic value, all that. Those were benefits of them creating their own app. But one of the drawbacks was it kind of cut them off from like the rest of the rest of DeFi, in a sense. So yeah, in terms of fracturing liquidity, yeah. And so, like, how do you guys view that problem? Maybe and obviously some enterprises are not going to care because they don't care about that as much. But for like financial applications, payments a little bit, like these enterprises that need liquidity. How do you guys think about solving that problem that kind of sprouts out of now you've got all these app chains that are being built on Tanssi, but how do you help them with that problem, I guess?
Yeah, I know for sure. That's a very valid question. I would say like we have the two verticals of clients, so to say. So first, we grew a lot, especially in Latam. I would say at this point in Brazil, we have like all the major uh, we call usually these guys Web 2.5 projects because they are really like making this kind of middle ground between the traditional financial institutions and fintechs, or they are fintechs that just want to explore crypto as a tool, right? So as something to build their projects on top of, and for these type of clients, they don't really care about on-chain liquidity. So they're actually bringing liquidity on-chain, right? So there's a very cool use case here that we always, there are many actually, but like if I would highlight one is a company that was accelerated by the Brazilian stock exchange. It's called BlockBR. And what they are doing is that they are creating like a white label solution for tokenized investments. And what does it mean, right? So they are going to all the financial advisors and also brokerage companies here in Brazil and saying, guys, do you want to offer also tokenized investments for your clients? So here's the API. You just integrate that into your app, and we offer like a white label solution. You call my API, and everything is set there. All the tokenization part, all the framework. They also solved all the legal side as well. So they have a standard framework for securitization and everything, all compliant to the Brazilian legal framework, which is super interesting, right? So these guys, they don't care, right? So they are actually bringing money to their chains, and they don't really need to connect to, I don't know, Solana to bring Solana liquidity from Solana to their own chain, just as an example. But you're right when you say that there are also many kind of more degen use cases, more crypto native use cases, and these guys, they suffer with the liquidity fragmentation. So thinking about this, we have always thought in a very kind of multi-chain way at Tanssi, just for like a very existential problem or at least fact. Tanssi is already multi-chain itself, right? Because we have our own chain, we have the Tanssi standalone chain, but also we source the economic security in Ethereum, right? Using Symbiotic vaults. Restaking vaults powered by Symbiotic. So by definition, we are already multi-chain. So we had to think about all our tech stack based on this because there's part of the protocol happening in Substrate, which is our development framework. So part of the protocol is happening in the Tanssi chain itself, and part of that, a very key part, which is the economic security, happens in restaking vaults in Ethereum. So we have this implementation of Beefy, and we have this native bridge that is used by ourselves, right? So it's used by our own protocol to work. And this bridge is also available to the chains that are orchestrated by Tanssi. So one of the very interesting things that we have is that for those who are familiar to Cosmos, right? Since you mentioned, so we have something very analogous to IBC, right? This interoperability layer. So this messaging system interoperability layer that's native to the Cosmos ecosystem, or XCMP in Polkadot. So it's very similar as well. So all the chains that are orchestrated by Tanssi, they don't need to, but they can be interconnected. As it's just a matter of kind of configuring communication channels, but like the interoperability is native. And if they are native interconnected, they can also use our bridges, right? Of course, there's a rollout plan for all of that, and we're going to be enabling all these features with time. But what I can say is like we always thought of this problem. Like there is definitely a problem. Fragmentation of liquidity is the maybe the biggest kind of hurdle for the app chain space to evolve. But there are very cool solutions, right? So Polygon, Ag Layer.
Yeah.
There is a company called Psycho Network. Also, it's also a network in Symbiotic. They also want to create like a solution for shared security. So it's an aggregation layer for serving all these ecosystems. So we're going to be connected to these type of solutions to help the most like crypto native projects to just access more liquidity. And also, like I think once we start to onboard the chains orchestrated by Tanssi, there's a very interesting network effect on that, right? So we just announced this week the very interesting collab with Wirex. So Wirex is one of the biggest crypto cards in the industry. They are present in 130 countries, over 6 million people using them, $20 billion a year in payments, right? So that's a big name, right? And they are building one chain with us, which they call like Wirex Pay chain. And the idea of this chain is just to make these payments on their own chain, right?
Yep.
And we have also several other companies that have, that are playing. There are important players in other regions, like in Brazil. We have people in Colombia. We have people in Asia as well. So we are trying to create this network effect of these payment companies. And once you have that, I think it's a very interesting aspect as well for the liquidity standpoint, because the more chains we have, the more liquidity we attract, and this liquidity is interoperable by definition. So once we start to onboard many, we are calling them PayFi companies, right? PayFi projects, and all these guys, all of them offer on-ramp solutions. So they are bringing liquidity on chain, and then this liquidity can just run free using this interoperability layer that we have. So it's a very interesting ecosystem that we are creating. And also this payment solutions, these on ramps and everything, all these stable coins, they can be used also for other use cases like gaming, right? So one of the coolest thing is that I think that will be happening once we start to onboard all these clients is that we're just going to have a massive network effect for liquidity, for features, for interoperability in general. So.
Awesome. No, it's great. It's great to hear that you guys have already kind of solved for that. Yeah, and that makes sense in terms of like solving the fragmentation problem. And it's cool because like the more and more I hear you speak about, Tanssi, obviously the more I read about it, right? It's almost like you've got kind of all these key like modular services already set up, for the enterprises that want to build their apps, on the network, and they can just kind of like opt into them, as they're building, their chain, which is great. One of those things, by the way, to segue into something I wanted to ask you about actually is, let's talk about the orchestration chain a little bit. A lot
Yes.
of the I think a lot of the heat that L2s are getting, is around this idea of the centralization of the sequencer, uh,
Yes.
censorship, risks on the sequencer level. Maybe talk about how you guys are solving for that. Now, I will preface this by saying that not everybody cares about that. Like I'm sure there's
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of enterprises you're talking to that do not care at all that there's any kind of centralization on the sequencer. But maybe talk about that a little bit. Like for the people that do care, or the use cases that do care about that, how do you guys solve that?
Yeah, well, first of all, we do care. And I think part of our job is
Yeah,
caring about that on behalf of these people that don't want to care about it, right?
great.
Because,
Oh, great to hear.
yeah, that's actually one of the key differentiators, I would say, that we have compared to L2s, as we were mentioning, right? So when you deploy your smart contract based application on an L2, you don't have any control of the sequencers, right? So maybe if you have your own L2, of course, or L3 even, but if you deploy a smart contract based application, a gaming, a DeFi, a DEX, whatever, in a rollup, you don't have any control on the sequencing side, how centralized it is. And that's something we want to solve with Tanssi, right? So we have a very comprehensive node operator set, not only sequencer, but also validator set. So we are working with the leaders in the industry. We're talking about the P2Ps of the world, Chorus Ones of the world. So we're going to have a very comprehensive set of sequencers. And that's permissionless, right? So everyone that wants to apply for having, to produce blocks for Tanssi or to validate for Tanssi, they can do that. And our idea is to attract as much liquidity as possible to ensure the economic security for those guys, but also having a very diverse set of sequencers, validators since day zero, right? So we talking about a little bit about the rollout of the Tanssi network itself. So we're going to be launching our mainnets very soon, making our TGE. In a first moment, we're going to be just ourselves, right? So just the chain, Tanssi chain itself. And after some time, we're going to start to onboard the networks that we are orchestrating, so the app chains that we are orchestrating. But since the beginning, we managed to attract a lot of interest of the node operators. Some of them even invested in Tanssi in previous rounds. So I think that shows like how aligned we are in that side. And we're gonna be, offering a very diverse set of node operators in general, not only sequencers but also validators. I think in general, decentralization, it's boring. Not everybody cares about that, but that has always been like a very key concept for Tanssi. We also of course, like many node operators, they use cloud like AWS, GCP, but we have a bunch of them also that use bare metal solutions as well, just to kind of, we are not creating a bunch of, rocket science stuff, to finish everything in AWS, right? So we want to have a diverse. We are decentralizing a lot, but everything runs on AWS. So we also care, and we also value a lot like bare metal solutions as well. So we try to onboard as many node operators as possible with different tech stacks as well. So that's definitely something we value a lot. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Pendle. Pendle is a leading protocol in the DeFi yield sector, operating as a permissionless yield trading protocol, facilitating the tokenization and splitting of any yield-bearing assets in DeFi. This allows users to speculate on future yield or earn a fixed rate on their assets. Learn more at pendle.finance. No, yeah, it's good to hear. And to be clear about what I was saying before about my own views on decentralization, it only bothers me when apps or protocols they're jumping through all of these hoops to try to decentralize every possible part of their protocol, but to their detriment, right? To the detriment of the user experience, the detriment of the fracturing liquidity, whatever it may be, right? But I love it when projects have it just makes sense in terms of how it fits in the business model, in terms of the lift and the ROI to get to that decentralization point. I love it when projects kind of have that paradigm going, and it sounds like you guys do. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and obviously alleviates a lot of the concerns, right, that come up with these kinds of things too.
And actually you touched on a very key point, right? So we all love decentralizations. We are all like aping here, and we are all degens, and we love that. But as you said, it shouldn't be detrimental to the final experience, to the final user, to the actual product that we are building. And that's something that excites me a lot about Latam in general. We don't have a giant tradition on, ChatGPT would never be invented in Latam. We are not the ones who are creating the most effective and most cutting edge consensus mechanism. We are not developing, quantum quant chips, and we are not doing that. But we are very good in something that I think is key for the industry right now, which is we get all this tech stack, this cutting edge tech stack, and we apply that for solving real problems, right? So fintechs in Brazil, they are starting to explore blockchains as a database. I don't know, as just a tool, right? So they don't really, and that's very interesting, right? So when you talk about the underlying tech stack to I don't know, a more crypto native project, they want to know everything about the consensus and the throughput and all of that. When we talk about these fintechs here, they are like, oh, you solved my problem. You put together my blockchain, and I can just trust your. I mean, done. Like I want to keep it simple. I want to solve the problem. I want to onboard my user, and I want to offer like a cutting edge, the most enhanced governance possible, the immutability on the information. Like the needs are more simple, I'd say, but impact that these guys have generated is incredible because they are just onboarding a shitload of users, and they are just offering an alternative for even offshore investors that want to have like yields, LATAM yields. Say a Japanese investor is like receiving like less than 1% a year for their investments in Japan, while we can, like with not so much risk, receive like 30% a year in BRL terms. And then if you discount the hedging, that would be 20% a year in very like premium credit operations in Brazil. So why should this guy, still receive 1% if he could take a little bit more risk and then taking this juicier yields here? So these are the problems that fintechs in Brazil are trying to solve. They don't really care about like the very granular details about how it happens. They test it. They say, yeah, it helped. It works. I can trust on this. They check the audits and everything. Like they have a lot of criteria to start trusting. But once they trust, they want to solve their problems, right? They want to onboard users. They want to register transactions. They want to make things happen, right? So I think that's a very interesting aspect of this landscape that we are seeing growing a lot in Tanssi, which is a LATAM landscape. But we have also other use cases. I just mentioned Wirex, right, for instance, which is a project in Europe. But I think that's a very interesting. It's almost like two religions, when it comes to builders. So it's very interesting to navigate those two different waters. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of use cases, like there's been a ton of use cases that I've kind of read about that you guys have launched that seem significant. Like one of those, I'm hoping you can highlight for us is the Astra Digital Zone partnership. Uh,
Yes.
let's talk about that and like what are the implications of that for the network. What were you guys looking to solve with that collaboration?
Yeah, just giving a step back and talking a little bit about the major concept here. So we are talking about network states, right? So network states are this concept that was introduced by Balaji, and he actually has like an open source book that's it's called Network States. And if I would just summarize what network states are, these are new ways for society to get organized, and usually it just leverages like private capital to develop new cities, new countries, even or new society organizations, right? And that's very broad, right? So Astra is a very interesting use case. So there's a company called Tools for the Commons who is developing this project, and they are a big partner of Tanssi. Like we develop a bunch of stuff together. So Tools for the Commons is the operational framework for network states, right? And they have projects in Honduras, in Brazil, in Tanzania, and Astra now in Central Asia, right? So the idea there is to create an operational framework for new countries to emerge. And these countries, they not necessarily are connected geographically. You might have like a city of a country, I don't know, in Latam and another city in Asia. And these two cities, they kind of belong or they are attached to the same country. So it's a very kind of a little bit tripping, to talk about these things, and it's very kind of different to anything we ever saw, but it's very valid, right? So these guys, they are sourcing private capital to develop new countries, new cities. And these cities and these countries, they usually have, several benefits tax wise. So you have to attract people to those structures, right? So usually they offer tax benefits, and like easier ways to open companies, and to get your citizenship. But it's the key part here, and the blockchain part here, and where Tanssi comes to play here, is that if we are creating new countries, these countries deserve their own chains, right? Because they might have they need to have sovereignty as a country or as a city or as whatever organization it should be. It could be a co-working space, by the way, right? It's very broad. But in the case of Tools for the Commons and Astra, like we are talking about new countries, right? And if that's the case, like they need to be sovereign. And for being sovereign, that makes sense for them to have their own chains. It's a very fascinating vertical for Tanssi that we are exploring with Tools for the Commons, because all these countries, they usually have since day zero, everything is tokenized. So identity is digital. So all the citizens, they have a representation of their ID on chain. Possessions, right? So owning stuff, owning real estate, that's registered on chain. So for these guys, actually, the blockchain becomes almost like a big notary service, and again, the beauty of what we offer in Tanssi is that they can explore that very easy, cheaper, and super, straightforward, but they have a huge amount of customizability on everything that they want to do. So if they want to deploy some, for instance, if that's a chain that's related to a government, you don't want necessarily like everyone to be, to be allowed for deploying stuff there. Maybe you want to whitelist, like maybe companies that have a registration there, they can deploy stuff, but not like someone that doesn't have any connection to that country. So that's one thing that you could do. You can just whitelist which are the wallets that are open that are allowed to deploy stuff on there, or no, you just want to have that for governmental stuff. So only these set of wallets will be allowed for interacting with the chain or deploying stuff on the chain. So the governance aspect is very key here for all these network states. And Astra is a very cool example. There are also other companies that are being sponsored or developed by Tools for the Commons as well. But that's a fascinating world, but it's just like a whole new world, right?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, and it's funny. It reminds me of, I mean, this was what 2019 when I first came into the space. There was a lot of talk about these smart cities that were being built.
Yeah,
I mean, they are being built, right? But that was like a big meta was like this smart city that's built, with the metaverse kind of like embedded in it, and then everything's run on the blockchain. And it's just kind of cool to hear like years later now you guys kind of talking about this kind of at a larger scale than that. Um,
yeah,
but I absolutely agree with you. Like, and I have to say, like, if I were starting a nation state today, or doing anything like that, then one of the things I would want to embed would be kind of this digitization of most things, right? Because it's so hard now to like retrofit everything that we built in the developed world into the blockchain. Like that's what a lot
yeah.
that's what your business is built on. That's what a lot of businesses are built on. But it's so cool to me to just kind of like build everything from ground zero on the blockchain and see what kind of like levels of efficiency you can achieve. And so that's a
Yeah.
really cool use
No,
case.
100% agree. And also, like, I think, like, back in these days, I think we were still talking a lot about metaverse, as you said, right? So all this narrative was always touching metaverse and everything. I think things got more real recently, right? So you're not talking about, your avatar in the city. We are talking about tax exemptions and fast tracking for your companies there. So I think the concepts evolved. I think like Prospera in Honduras is a very nice use case, which is already a very nice example, which is already more developed. So yeah, it's a fascinating in its own world, right?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So I want to transition over to the Tanssi token. Obviously, I think TGE is coming up what in 2 weeks, around 2 weeks, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Hopefully.
So I wanted to, yeah, right, yeah, asterisk there. Maybe, maybe not. That's how these things go sometimes. But let's talk about the utility of Tanssi. The one thing I'm curious about is obviously you guys are leveraging Symbiotic, for economic security, through their restaking vaults. I think you guys are also planning on launching, Tanssi staking, so people could stake their tokens. How do those two things coexist? Like, what would be the utility of the Tanssi staking versus the Symbiotic security?
Mhm.
Maybe clear that up for me. What would
Yeah, I think
the relationship
it's
be?
actually the same, right? So Symbiotic is pretty flexible, right? I think Misha, Felix, and the team there, like they have always been big believers on flexibility, and they always wanted to offer like support to as many tokens and as many even like yeah as many tokens as possible. So this idea it's gonna be the same as we have today. So today we have vaults where you can deposit, like we have, I would say like over 10 vaults at this moment. I don't know, it's really growing super fast. So I kind of lost a little bit the math there. But yeah, say 10 vaults, right? And there are vaults that accept different derivatives, but all of them are ETH derivatives, right? So staking, restaking derivatives. Now we want to introduce as well a vault it's coming soon. I don't have a date yet, but like what we are working on is like a vault that accepts Tanssi tokens, right? And the idea is that this is just going to be increasing the amount of economic security available for the networks orchestrated by Tanssi. But it doesn't really change a lot. It's going to still be a symbiotic vault. Just the token that's accepted there is a new token. That's the Tanssi token. So that's more or less how it works. But essentially, it's just like it's a way for people to add a new utility to the token, which is like staking and offering these as an economic security for the whole ecosystem. Uh, but also like it's about the same, but like mostly focused on the Tanssi token and in our community, which is something that we are always looking for, like adding more value to the community, so they could be participating in the rewards as well. Yeah, we have the points program as well already live. Um, so yeah, when you stake with Tansy, you can source. It really depends on the vault, right? But we're gonna be announcing the points program for Tansy, but you're also scoring symbiotic points as well. And depending on the vault, you could also score points in the vault managers protocol, or it really depends on which vault you choose. But I highly encourage people to check it out, because there are many extra incentives uh, uh, available, and that's going to be really like a short period of time, right? So it's going to be a window for people to take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And if you can drop this alpha, please do. If not, feel free not to. But you mentioned vault managers there. So like I've seen this a lot lately where people are teaming up with chains are teaming up with like, Turtle Club or Royco or and then they're bringing in these curators that are curating these strategies to kind of manage this liquidity.
Mhm.
What can you tell us about the vault managers? Is that something you guys have already released publicly, or
Yeah,
can you
yeah.
give us what's coming?
Y- Yeah, sure. Actually, I can just share here a link with
Beautiful.
you, and I don't know if that's going to be available for people watching us, but maybe you can share together. Uh, I don't know how to share this here, but I can share with you after. But yeah, we have already the vaults live. You can check on chain the symbiotic.fi, you're gonna see the Tanssi chain over there. And yeah, I mean, we have like very different types of vaults, right? So for instance, we have either 5 volt, we have Renzo vault. These are more, I'd say, uh, maybe I can say like retail oriented, right? Because you can just use these protocols and stake and restake, and then you're going to be receiving the rewards. But then we have also like Gauntlet vaults, we have RE7 vaults, and many others, right? So MEV Capital, so CP0X as well. So there are many, right? And each vault is going to be using like different vault managers, right? So it really depends. But yeah, I mean, many of them use Mallow, for instance, which is a protocol that we are very close to. We are super excited about these guys as well. Nick and the team, they're doing a great job. But yeah, it really varies, right? And Tanssi is super permissionless, right? So we're gonna be having different vaults coming and going, and hopefully only coming. But yeah, it really depends, and it's very broad. And yeah, we are always looking for new delegations, new creators, and everything.
No, awesome. Yeah, no, I really like this model, and it's good to see that you guys have kind of adopted it, because I just think it abstracts away a lot of complexity, away from the users.
Yeah,
They can just click, deposit, done, and then
yeah,
the rest of it can be managed by the vault
yeah.
providers in Symbiotic.
Yeah, some of those votes, they are private, right? So you cannot, like as a retail investor, you cannot stake or restake there. But there are others that are public, so it's a good mix, I would say. So it's a little bit of everything, and yeah, I'm pretty proud actually of this mix that we managed to put together in such a short period of time. I think like most of these votes we are working with, like we put everything together in like 2 weeks or so, and then they start to increase the delegation. So I think it's a very interesting ecosystem that we managed to build in a very short time. And you can see in the screen here that you're sharing like the symbiotic points, for instance. So it's pretty cool, right?
Yep. Yep. No, I love the user experience for this, by the way. Yeah. Good job
Mhm.
to you. Hats off to Symbiotic as well, and the rest of them.
Nice.
Okay, cool. So, one last thing I wanted to ask about on the token too. I think I saw something you guys had written or announced about, the Tanssi token, and what it's going to be used for in terms of like fees. Can you talk about that a little bit? And I
Yeah.
thought I saw a mention of like public good funding, which is obviously, Optimism's done really good things with I think kind of that model. But maybe touch on that a little bit, for us as well.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, so I think first the first question about the second question about funding, that's really straightforward. Yeah, I mean we have the Tanssi Foundation has an open grants program, so we are always looking to incentivize the builders that are building public goods or that are building interesting stuff in our ecosystem as well. So we yeah, I mean grants programs. Some of them were very good executed in the past, some of them not that much, but like we want to make it work, and we're going to be offering strategic grants for strategic partners as well, like collabs, interesting collabs that we can evolve, and that will be adding value to the community. We are always curious and interested to explore. So yeah, that's definitely it's definitely open to explore.
Awesome. Well, it's great to hear. Really
Oh yeah,
looking.
and the first question, sorry, the first question was,
Oh, sorry. About the public goods. The public goods.
yeah,
Yeah. Any color you can provide on that?
no, you made another question before the public goods, sorry.
Oh, sorry. The fees. The fees. So there was
Yeah, the fees, yeah, that's true, sorry.
yeah. I don't know.
Maybe you
Yeah,
can
my
add.
brain's all over the place. Yeah. The fees. So like I would imagine there's some kind of a fee accrual. Somewhere. How does that
Yeah,
generate value for the Tanssi token, or like how does that model look?
yeah, maybe you can just add this part after
Yeah,
the
we will.
recording. But No, when it comes to the fees, right? So I think a very interesting, like a very simple way to explain Tense's business model is an analogy to AWS, right? So nowadays, like I'm old, right? So I'm 38. So back in my time, when you wanted to bootstrap a server, right? So you had to configure everything manually. Cloud servers were not like super popular back in the days. Like was expensive, was like just not easy to a student in university to just access this type of thing, right? Right now, like they have, credits, they have a bunch of stuff for students, so it's pretty easy. And I think like there's an analogy to what we see today with blockchains, right? So today, if you want to bootstrap your server in Japan to do, I don't know, a collocation in whatever trading system, and you have these and that specs, like how many gigabytes the server is going to be a Linux or a Windows machine. You have all of that. It's just clicking on the screen and configuring all of that, right? And what's fascinating is that you just buy Amazon credits, for instance, for AWS, and these credits they become available in your account. You configure all this infrastructure that I just said, and then when you start to use this credit gets depleted, right, over time. So that's a perfect analogy to what we want to do with Tanssi, what we are doing in Tanssi. So when you buy the Tanssi tokens so Tanssi token is a utility token, right? So you buy the token, you move to your wallet, and then this wallet, it's going to be connected to our dApp. And this wallet's going to become like the master wallet to your chain, right? And then it's the Tanssi tokens, they become just like credits, right? And the more you use the block production as a service, the validation as a service, like all our features, all our services, these tokens going to be depleted over time as well from your wallet. So that's the very same and very simple analogy um, to AWS credits, right? So that's how it works.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I mean, more and more as we continue to kind of develop the space. I think token utility, and especially I think there's been regime changes that have helped in the political environment, and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
utility tokens, I think, are going to make a big comeback. And it's always good to hear that because I think I look at a lot of these chains, and really the token is just a governance token, right? And it's kind of a meme. But like then there's not a whole lot of incentive. There's not a whole lot of economic value, in my opinion, to just a governance token. It just becomes kind of like this token that's emitted and farmed and dumped. So you've got
hmm
to have these, these offsets, in other places where people are actually using the token. They're burning it. They're using, they're taking it out of circulation to kind of offset all that. So it's good to hear that you guys have thought about that too.
yeah, and also we work with Gauntlet in our token economics. So these guys are great. So they did an amazing job as well. So they even have like simulations, stochastic simulations for the scenarios for tokens. So yeah, they did a very nice job. Like our tech team, of course, helped a lot and create some preliminary models in the beginning, and then they came and they refined this, they resimulate and everything. And yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the whole team at Gauntlet. Yeah, I mean, they still work with us in the restaking side as well, so we have a very nice relationship. Uh, yeah, we thought about all these things. I think to your point on governance, I think like we all liked the idea, right? It's like on-chain governance and everything, but and we're gonna have the governance aspect as well. But we wanted to give more utility to the token, right? So that's definitely, yeah, that's a utility, right? So that, that's the key aspect here. And I mean, if we are successful, if we start to onboard new clients and having other collaborations, I mean, there's going to be more demand for the token, right? It's very very simple. And then we just hope that we can also keep onboarding these people, generating demand, generating activity, and yeah, that's the meta.
Yeah, absolutely. To close us out, the last thing I want to ask you about is competition in the space. So, um, I think we're seeing more and more of this, kind of this roll up as a service, or L1 as a service. Arbitrum's doing this with kind of like their Orbit product. The OP
Mhm.
stack is obviously doing this with like the super chain. Um, I would imagine you view them maybe as competitors. I don't know, but can you speak about maybe your view on like the competition and how you view Tanssi kind of differentiating itself over time? And talk about
Yeah.
it in terms of like your moat.
Yeah, I think there are two aspects here. So I would say yes, these guys are our competitors because Unichain could be using Tansy tech stack, right? Someone developing whatever I don't know base could be using our tech stack. So in a sense, we are competing because although we offer a very different tech stack, like we could have eventually, depending on the demands of the client, we could have the same client. So we are competing in a sense. But I would say like there's a lot of differences on the tech stack, right? So first, we are not bootstrapping rollups; we are bootstrapping self-sovereign layer ones, which we just discussed this a lot, right? So it offers like more customizability, it offers more yeah dedicated block space, etc., like more decentralization. So so these are some of the differentiators, but also like the one thing is the tech stack, and the second vertical that I was saying in the beginning is the actual like how you actually deploy, right? When it comes to Arbitrum and to Optimism, there are many roll up as a service companies that are software houses, right? So you come to these guys and you say, yeah, I want my chain, I want my roll up. You pay something up front and you just deploy. They just make it happen, right? So I believe this is actually like any tech, right? So technology, we saw that happening many times, right? So usually starts as something very expensive, very uh, limited, selected. Uh, but eventually it becomes more commoditized, right? And the price go down because there's always going to be someone offering like 5% less and then 5%, and then there's another competitor. So it's a race to the bottom, right? And we don't really believe on this model of just paying upfront for deploying your chain, right? So when it comes to that aspect, like Tansy is like the most optimized model possible because there are no setup fees, there are no upfront fees. We have all our infrastructure available, and you use it, you deploy your chain, and then you just pay per use, right? So you pay per block production, so you don't pay anything in advance. So if your project succeed and you generate a lot of transactions, it might become expensive, so to say, but that's because you're succeeding. So we are very optimized in that sense on the cost, right? Because uh, it's only going to be expensive if your project succeeds, and that's how we kind of create this kind of symbiosis with our clients, right? So we want to support them in every stage. We understand. I mean, we raise capital as well. We know how stressful it is, and yeah, the combining these limitation of capital, of course there are projects that raise hundreds of millions of dollars, but that's not the base case, right? So we ourselves as well, like we didn't raise like a giant amount of money, so we understand the how you can become like cash trapped sometime. So we want to offer the most optimal way to deploy the chain possible. So that's a little bit about the how, but also we want to do that in a very permissionless way. So ideally, you don't need to know Thiago, you don't need to know Francisco to deploy your chain in Tansy, right? We have a very comprehensive doc. We have everything like open. Our dApp is open. You just connect your wallet and boom, you deploy the chain, right? So no upfront fees, no, need to, I have a friend who always say that any blockchain integration, and we talk a lot about, interoperability and composability, but all blockchain integration start with, yeah, let's create a Telegram group. So we want to change this, a little bit. So making it permissionless, making it simple and fluid for the builders, that's actually what we want to offer. So these are some of the differentiations that we want to that we want to offer to the community. Uh, and yeah, there are some other players that are doing some more decentralized plays as well. I'll mention Saga, yeah, Dimension. So as I said in the beginning, right, there are many different flavors and colors, but yeah, these are products that are offering this more in a more permissionless way. But anyway, so there's a lot of things to unpack, but I try to cover a little bit of this in a high level here.
Absolutely. No, it makes perfect sense, and it sounds like I should come work for you, so that way my Telegram chat number will go down. So, uh,
We're gonna be hiring soon.
right. Well, it's been great. I think it's a good place to wrap up, Tiago. Before we do, any closing thoughts? What should users look forward to? Where do you want them to come to get involved with Tanssi?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is just to follow us on Twitter, right? So we are very active there. Like our community grew like substantially, especially in the last 3 months. Shout out to our marketing team, by the way. They are doing an outstanding job, like they always did, but they are really killing it right now. Um, we started a big campaign called Journey to Mainnet. And we grew from 90K followers to, I don't know, 170K followers that we have right now. So it really was really like a substantial growth. And this campaign is super interesting. There are many activities, right? So to engage with the community. So I'll definitely say, like, if you didn't check it out yet, go there, spend some time. So it's a very aggressive campaign as well when it comes to rewards. So I'll definitely encourage everyone to check it out. It's also very cool. That's something that I'm very proud of. We in Tanssi, by the way, means to dance in Finnish, right? And the idea of this name is because we see ourselves as, like, we are an orchestration blockchain, right? So we are an orchestration protocol. So we kind of coordinate the dance. So everything in Tanssi has always been like very, the identity is very colorful. We are always alluding to dance. We have dance box, dance floor. If you access the journey to mainnet, you're gonna see mirror balls and like very fun, very colorful stuff. So I'm very proud of this visual identity that we created. So we always try to do everything in a very fun way as well. So yeah, it's fun. Check it out. I think everybody's gonna enjoy it, and I think that's the best way to learn about what we're doing, our collaborations that we are disclosing, and yeah, it's I just encourage everyone to check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited for it. So obviously, anybody listening or viewing this at home, check the show notes afterwards when we post this podcast. We'll have links out to where you can find Tanssi and everything that they're doing. Also, be on the lookout for content from Alia Research, on Tanssi Network. That should be forthcoming, which will help everybody with their due diligence needs. And yeah, we appreciate your time, Tiago. We appreciate everybody listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Proof of Vision. Take care.
See you next episode. I'm also a big fan. Thank you very much, Kirk. It was a
Awesome.
pleasure to be here.
Yep. Take care.